Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. In the midst of all the recent news about the MTA, it's easy to forget that this organization is not a monolith. It's a living, breathing organization that is made up of people, tens of thousands of good people who do a good day's work day in and day out and move over 8.5 million people each and every day. Today we pause to reflect on three people who have given a great deal of their time, energy, and dedication to the MTA. First, it is with great sadness we remember Frank Powers, who served as a member of this board and 4 of its committees since 2005. Frank was a staunch advocate for public transportation, always ensuring that not only Staten Islanders, but all of our customers were fairly represented. He will be sorely missed. Our thoughts and prayers are with the entire Powers family on this sad occasion, and I ask you to join me as we observe a moment of silence in Frank's memory. Thank you. 35 years ago, on this very day, June 25th, 1973, a young man showed up for his first day at work, what was then the New York Transit Authority, as a management intern. Today we recognize a lifetime of work and dedication to the larger MTA family and show our appreciation to our treasurer, John Murphy, upon his retirement this week. As treasurer, John has been an able guardian of our cash assets and an invaluable and wise advisor on our management team. New Yorkers have had no idea of how much John has done over the years on their behalf. Of course, we will miss John and his commitment to the MTA and to New York greatly. But this is also a nice opportunity to reflect upon so many members of our staff who've devoted the entirety of their working careers in the humble service of providing critical transportation service to the New York region. It is often said that New York could not be New York without its transportation system. It is just as true that New York's transportation system could not be what it is without the honorable service of careerists like John, who, in good times and bad, stay focused on their mission and apply themselves fully. So please join me in congratulating a round of applause for our retiring treasurer, John Murphy. Great, John. Great job. Great job. But John is not the only one whose retirement is on our mind today. Pete Canito, the longest-serving president of the MTA Metro North, is also leaving us next month after nearly a decade of service to the railroad. I will leave the formal announcements and remarks to Lee as part of his executive director's report, but let me say that Pete's personal and emotional involvement with Metro North has most certainly made it a better place for its employees and its customers. We'll miss him, and I actually think he might miss us too. Pete? Three individuals, three terrific stories, three careers dedicated to public service. I know I speak on behalf of the board in being grateful for the service and the talent they brought and bring to the table. We are fortunate to have had them as part of the MTA family. And now to the regular agenda. Doug, do we have any public speakers?
We do. We have 7 public speakers, the first of whom is former board member Warren Dolney, and he'll be followed by Kate Slevin. Mr. Dolney.
Good morning. I served on this board from 1989 to 1996. I've used the transportation system that we have every day. I was one of the board members along with Barry Feinstein, who way back in the early 90s, after we lost our perks, by the way, one of the perks, which was a per diem. because the Governor Cuomo felt that we were in a budget crunch. But meanwhile, Barry and I were foremost in not wanting to rubber stamp what was coming down from the board chairman. We agree with the board chairman. The board chairman has a right to make decisions and discussions, but when it comes down to voting, each one of you have your own individual votes and have a right to vote the way you feel, not the way you're told. And that was one of the reasons why over the long period of service that I had, I was probably one of the very few board members who never got to have a committee chairmanship because of how I handled myself by not agreeing with the board chairman, I should say. To help describe what I'm talking about in my own particular case, I have two items I'd like to mention to you specifically. Back on July 11th, 1993, in the city edition of Newsday, Ellis Hennigan wrote, "The champion of public hearing attendance, board member Warren Dolney of Rockland County." The Strap Hangers campaign in May 5th, 1995 wrote that a legislative aide told Newsday's Gail Collins that the best MTA board member for the city right now is Warren Dolney from Rockland County. And now I call to your attention the point that's most important to me, that when I finally finished my service on the board, it said, "Be it therefore resolved that the members of the Board of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority and its subsidiaries and affiliates extend to Warren S. Dolney their appreciation and gratitude for his work to improve the region's transportation network and make him an honorary lifetime member of the board with all prerequisites of that position." How can you take away something you gave to somebody? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dolney. Next speaker, Kate Slevin, followed by Matthew Shotkin.
Good morning. I'm Kate Slevin, Executive Director of the Tri-State Transportation Campaign, an independent policy watchdog organization dedicated to forging a more balanced, equitable, and environmentally friendly transportation network in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. We hope the news of service cuts and station rehabilitation delays is a serious wake-up call for city and state legislators who have thus far failed to raise the revenue necessary to fund our transportation network. Ignoring the needs of our transit system has real impacts on the millions of us who use the subways, buses, and commuter rails to get around the region. At a time of record transit ridership and high gas prices, the last thing New Yorkers need is service cuts. While the MTA has certainly not been a model of good public relations in recent weeks, it's worth noting that many of the cost increases the agency is experiencing, both in its capital and operating budgets, are simply out of its control. It doesn't have enough government support. Ridership is increasing. Steel, concrete, and other infrastructure-related costs have skyrocketed in recent months. The rapidly increasing cost of gas that has affected all of our pocketbooks in one way or another has also impacted the MTA's operating budget. Still, it's imperative that the agency start to build its credibility with the public. Free transit passes, raises, and other news of late are simply distractions from the real problems at hand. The passes should be given up swiftly so the agency can work on the real problems. In other words, finding the revenue it needs to maintain our transportation network. The recovery of our transit system since the 1980s is one of the great urban revitalization tales of our time. And today, our transit system is the backbone of our region's economy. Over the past year, our robust transit network has helped protect us from declining home values and the impact of increasing gas prices. For example, according to an April National Public Radio News report, while many areas far from cities are seeing large drops in housing values, housing prices have actually gone up in many areas with transit options. Now the question is, who will be the leaders? Who will be the city and state politicians who will find the revenue necessary to fund our transit network? Politicians are quick to fight proposals like congestion pricing. They are eager to stand in support of a suspension in our gas taxes or our tolls. They are happy to oppose bus cameras that would help enforce bus lanes. But when it comes to tough decisions that would improve the daily commutes for many transit riders in our region, there is general silence. We hope this void in leadership changes so our region can remain livable and economically competitive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Slevin. Next speaker is Matthew Shotkin, and he'll be followed by Mr. X.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Andrew, that's one of the nicest ties that I've ever seen you wear. 10 days ago, a guy was caught on Father's Day weekend on June 15th, sneaking into the Columbus Circle station. Afterwards, I found out from an MTA employee in Grand Central Terminal that people try to sneak in using the MTA vest, but the same employee also said that if you have to be wearing both a vest and an MTA ID badge to be in order to be let through the gate. This guy was just wearing the MTA vest, which is why he was caught. I wish that the MTA would do something about recognizing a guy like that. Thanks for your time this morning.
And thank you, Mr. Shuckin. Mr. X will be followed by Marty Goodman.
All right, just three things. My condolences go out to Frank Powers. I believe he was married to Susan. That's first. Second, it's up to Elliot Sander to get the board members off Easy Street. It's just getting ridiculous. It's also getting outrageous. And out of that, you want another fare and toll increase. You got to be kidding. You just had one. Okay. And third, to Peter Canito, I'm glad you're retiring. In the beginning, you were nice to us. Then all of a sudden, you became a hated rule breaker. When April 2004, I was illegal for trespass on 125th Street. I brought it to your attention at the 2005 Metro Railroad Community Council Forum. You ignored me. I told you MTA Cops I was victimized by the MTA Cops at Marble Hill, which is my station, Fordham Plaza. They stopped me from waiting inside stations. Your comment was, well, they're not for loitering. Either you have business being there or you don't. That's a lame excuse. It's also a childish excuse. Okay, I blasted you about that at the 2007-2008 Metro Railroad Community Council forums. So I'm glad you're retiring, Peter. Now that you're retired, I ask you to do me one favor. Take a walk, take a hike, and go join Peter Calco, Larry Reuter, Jim DeMarty, Iris Wanshaw, and Kathy Lapp. Okay, in other words, go run with your tail between your legs like the coward you really are. And don't let the door hit you on your way out. Another thing I'd like to say to Peter Canito, what you did with those cars is unacceptable. You diverted new cars to the Harlem and Hudson lines. You didn't divert them to the New Haven line. You have separate cars for the New Haven line, and they have less seats. The design's terrible. So your BIC against the New Haven line, which serves two states, it's selfish. There's no excuse for that. So, Peter, goodbye and good riddance to you. And like I said, don't let the door hit you on your way out.
Thank you, Mr. X. Next speaker, Marty Goodman, followed by Gene Rushinoff.
Hello, my name is Marty Goodman. I'm a station agent and served on the TWU Executive Board for 9 years. I say hell no to fare hikes and service cuts. And I have to say that I don't have to come early to these meetings anymore because when Albany is about ready to slam the working class, there isn't much of a protest amongst the unions. And my congratulations to the Democratic Party. Love Gov 1 and Love Gov 2 got labor to let slide fare hike and service threats without a peep. Without even the wimp fest such protests have become in recent years. And now Patterson says the love affair is over, quote unquote, between Albany and the unions. Sure, tell that to transit workers. Our 09 contract is in Albany's crosshairs already. Transit workers know that. But rather than tax the working stiffs on Park Avenue, those who caused this recession and so-called MTA shortfalls, the MTA wants to slam us. MTA debt service, projected as 20% of expenses in 09, will insulate bankers and holders of tax-free MTA bonds from pain. Not us, of course. It's fair beating gone nuclear. Way better than the gentleman's agreement on easy passes. Why not make banks and bondholders pay their way instead of jacking up fines to $100 for some unemployed kid in Harlem? At Monday's meeting, we learned that reversing last December's double cross on service enhancements, read decent service, will be financed in part on the backs of transit workers. Cuts in train service jobs, cuts in car cleaning jobs, and cuts in station agent jobs. It's the old game. Tell the public it slammed the TWU or face fare hikes and service cuts. Meanwhile, Mr. Sander accepts a $10,000 raise, bringing the package up to $350,000. So what's going on? Recently, a study found the wealth gap in New York State is the nation's highest.
Please conclude, Mr.
Meanwhile, gas, food, and rent are through the roof. Homes and jobs are in free fall. The New York Rent Board just approved a huge rent hike. And you calling us stupid, working people?
Please conclude, Mr. Goodman.
Okay. Until 1981, New York had a nickel tax on stock trades. Restoring it as an MTA dedicated tax would generate, according to an earlier estimate, up to $12 billion per year, relieving deficit fears and making transit free to boot. I say no to all fare hikes and cuts, full funding for mass transit, and rip up the MTA debt.
Thank you, Mr. Goodman. Our next speaker is Gene Rushinoff. He'll be followed by our last speaker, Murray Bowden. Mr. Rushinoff.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, MTA board members, and staff. My name is Gene Rushinoff. I'm with the Strap Hangers campaign. The financial news for the MTA and the millions of its riders is terrible. There are threats of fare hikes and service cuts and a downturn in the capital program. So in the midst of this budget Armageddon, does it make sense to be talking about what board members should be getting for easy passes or Metro cards? Isn't this a distraction? I do think there's some really important messages in the fight over the easy passes. First, the composition of this board in no way is representative of the riding public that you serve, either by gender or race or income. No wonder why your customers howled when they heard that you were exempting yourself from the impact of fare hikes and toll hikes for life. Your appointing officials, the governor, the mayor, and the county executives, must commit to more diversity in this board and must find ways to ensure that all of you are regular riders of the transit system. Second, as has been said by earlier speakers, this board has a credibility problem, and that's not news to you. And it comes at a time that you're asking the city and the state and possibly the riding public and the driving public for financial rescue. The public skepticism is fueled by real events, whether it's the $400 million cost overrun to Broadway or the on-again, off-again nature of the service enhancements. In all fairness, the MTA has taken some steps to make itself more accountable, particularly putting out your budget 6 months in advance, but it's clearly not enough. Now, you can take the view that these stories, these bad news stories, are inevitable, so why bother? Or you can try to take action to improve how the MTA is viewed by your customers and by the officials that serve them. The state legislature has been considering beefing up a public oversight office for public authorities. It's designed to open up agencies, policies, and decisions to the public. I would urge the board to embrace the public authority budget office. And another step would be to make your contracts more readily available to public review. The choice is yours. You can either view the Easy Pass dust-up as an unfair turn of the screw, or you can take action to make the board more diverse and accountable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rushinoff. And our last speaker today is Murray Bowden.
Good morning. My name is Murray Bowden, and I represent concerned grandparents. I want to talk about pornography. Pornography, defined by the Supreme Court, is of no redeeming social value. And we have a number of pornographers here today. They're sitting back here, and they call themselves people of the press. People of the press have been putting pages and pages of information about this Easy Pass deal. What you should have been talking about in those same pages and pages is the fact that cameras on the buses was defeated. It is the one thing that could have improved transportation in the city. So you pornographers back there representing our newspapers and television have distracted the public from knowing that if we had cameras on buses, then the traffic lanes would be clear and the buses would go faster. Chicago has put cameras on their street sweepers, and as a result, you don't have to deploy an army of people to give out tickets. And when the street is cleaned on your area, you can park your car there. Now, the people of the Fourth Estate are responsible for a great deal of what's going on here. You're picking on these people on, as Gene said, yeah, it is an easy pass problem. And have they done some silly things? Of course they have. These pants I'm wearing, I came today because I have a welding class, and the black patches, I dropped a grinder on my leg the other day and ripped my pants open, and actually, a week ago, 2 months ago, and ripped my leg open too. The black patches to remind me to be more careful. Do I make stupid mistakes? Of course I do. Do they make stupid mistakes? Of course they do. But the worst mistake is of the press, who've devoted pages and pages and pages to something, as Gene has said, is relatively irrelevant. So if you really care about transportation in this city, Mr. Chairman, what you ought to do for the press conference today is hold it on the Henry Hudson Bridge, where Bridges and Tunnels has put in a new type of lane marking so that people know that the Capock Street exit is an exit. It's the new dotted line. It's the newest thing going. Hold your press conference there today instead of over here, so these people know what you've been doing and what your Bridges and Tunnel people have been doing to make traffic easier.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden.
Thank you all for your time.
And that concludes today's public speaking.
Thank you. The minutes of last month's meeting have been distributed to all the members. Are there any corrections or omissions? Mr. Blair, sir.
It's not on that. After that, I'd like to speak.
Are there any corrections? Could I have a second? All in favor? All those in favor? They're approved. Yes, Jim.
Relative to the comments that were made at the public speaking today, I just feel it's incumbent upon me to speak out against some of the calumnies that were lodged by Mr. X against Peter Canito. I think that it does not reflect the sentiment or of this board or in any way the performance of this valued executive. And after enduring that sort of thing for years, it's time we put an end to it.
Lee, your remarks, please.
Good morning. On Monday, we briefed the Finance Committee on our financial outlook on both the operating and capital sides. As I had warned in my remarks last month and earlier, there is reason for concern in both. On the operating side, our ridership is up approximately 5% overall, but is being offset by decreased vehicle crossings on the bridges and tunnels. More importantly, the real estate tax revenues continue to be well under our projections. Because of the slowing economy, the revenue of the mortgage recording tax and the New York City urban tax were $40.9 million less than we had just anticipated just for the month, or $121.8 million below expectations for the year. On the capital side, we presented a capital plan amendment that you will vote on next month. The amendment includes deferrals of $2.7 billion worth of work at transit, the railroads, and bridges and tunnels that we had intended for the latest phases of the 05 to 09 capital program into the early phases of the 2010 to 2014 capital program, which we expect will have a $15 to $20 billion funding gap. Meanwhile, we are prioritizing $200 million to purchase subway cars to expand the B division and budgeting $91 million for flood control work made apparent by the report we commissioned to look into the storms of August 8th, 2007. Overall, even as our real estate tax revenue is falling, the price for fuel and commodities used in construction are rising. We look forward to working with Albany and all our funding partners on finding solutions. We're grateful that Governor Patterson has appointed Dick Ravitch to chair the Blue Ribbon Panel on Transportation Finance, and I'm looking forward to working with the rest of the panel members as we go forward. We are taking aggressive steps to reduce our costs by 6% over 4 years at each of the agencies. We have created a business service center to consolidate back office operations for an anticipated $30 to $40 million annual savings. The creation of the regional bus company, which we announced last month, has already begun a major management restructuring, consolidating many upper-level management positions this month. Not only is this yielding cost savings from upper-level management, but is improving operations. First test of regional bus consolidated road operations came at the Belmont Stakes, where we had a huge mass of people leaving at once. This could have overwhelmed individual agencies, but the combined resources of the regional bus company, with that, it ran very well. Speaking of regional bus, Patrick Sullivan, the general manager of road control for regional bus, was recognized this month with the prestigious 2008 Senator Norman J. Levy Bus Public Transportation Award. Patrick won this statewide honor because he initiated a multi-pronged approach to safety that resulted in a 71% decrease in fatal accidents, a 29% reduction in pedestrian accidents, and a 19% reduction in injuries in 2007. Patrick, can you stand up and wave your hand so we can have a round of applause for you? And there is Patrick back there. Also, in terms of safety, the Long Island Railroad was recognized by the E.H. Harriman Memorial Awards Institute, which presented its certificate of commendations for most improved employee accident rate in its class. The railroad recorded a 13% reduction in accident-related lost time for its own employees. This is an historic board meeting because, let's have a hand for Long Island Railroad. Well, as previously noted, this is by our chair and others. This is an historic board meeting because this is the last one that will be attended by the third and longest-serving president of Metro-North Railroad, Peter Canito. Mr. Chairman, okay. We're going to ask for another round in a second, but I think Pete deserves more than a few. Mr. Chairman, I would like to present a resolution for Pete, and in a minute I would like you to ask the board for a vote on this. Pete, can you come up, please? And why don't you sit here while I read this? Peter assumed the presidency of Metro-North in 1999. He oversaw increases in service in response to increased ridership. He worked to bring expenses under control by implementing new financial management programs. He oversaw and developed service changes that responded to the significant expansion of off-peak and reverse-peak ridership. He managed the initiation of a new generation of automated ticket machines and the integration of joint railroad MetroCard sales. He managed the purchase of 336 new M7 rail cars and the building of the hybrid yard. Most importantly, he leaves the railroad in better shape than it ever has been, with record ridership, on-time performance, and customer satisfaction. Be it therefore resolved that the members of the Board of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority and its subsidiaries and affiliates hereby extend to Peter Canito their appreciation and gratitude for his devotion to improving the region's transportation network. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the board for a vote on this resolution.
Could I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously approved.
Great. So approved. And we will be presenting the resolution formally later. And one of the things that Pete has always said that he wanted, more than anything else, was this tie. And
Chris found it.
And so here we are. We found it, and here is the tie. It is a tie of the strap hangers.
It's a strap hangers tie. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, Chris wears it at number of board. Is this your tie, by the way, or? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Pete. Along with a goodbye comes the first of two introductions, although this first one is a man familiar to all of us. Howard Permut will become the president of Metro-North Railroad next month. Howard has served Metro-North since it was founded in 1983, most recently as vice president of planning, development, and procurement. Let's give Howard a hand. And today we have a second introduction. Michael Cohen will be sworn in today as the new chief of the MTA Police Department. Michael brings 26 years of experience at the NYPD, including most recently as Deputy Chief, Executive Officer of the NYPD Detective Bureau. He will be a terrific leader of the department. Chief Cohen, please stand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, committee reports. Committee on Finance. James, would you please hit your button?
There are two action items this month. They are the 2008 Public Works Enforcement Fund assessment and the other post-employment benefit trust and plan. The committee approved both of these items, and I move them.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
There are no non-competitive this month. There are 9 competitive procurements. That's the yellow sheets. The committee recommend approval of all 9 for a total of $10,192,947, of which $9,500,000 is custodial and unarmed security service. It was approved by the committee, and I moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
There were no ratifications, Mr. Chairman. That's the end of our committee.
Thank you. Thank you. Transit Committee. Susan Metzger, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. The Transit Committee met on Monday, and we considered 2 action items. The first is the 8th Avenue Subway Line Emergency Ventilation Project. The action sought is to accept the final environmental impact statement, adopt the findings statement, and authorize implementation of the preferred alternative for the project.
I move the item. Second.
The second item is proposed increase in the Transit Adjudication Bureau's fine for fare evasion. I move that item.
Second, please. Second. All those in favor?
Aye. I recuse on the first, please.
Okay. Any opposed? So moved.
With respect to procurements, the procurement agenda includes 35 actions which were approved by the Transit Committee. In the non-competitive procurements, which are the green pages, there are 4 procurements totaling $700,000. These were approved by the committee, and I move them.
Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So moved.
Competitive procurements, which are the yellow pages, there were 19 competitive procurements for a total of $35.8 million. These were approved by the Transit Committee, and I move them.
Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So moved.
With respect to ratifications, which are the pink pages, there are 12 procurements totaling $27.1 million that were approved by the Transit Committee, and I move them.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So moved.
MTA Bus, there were no action items, no procurement items. So this completes the report of the Transit Committee.
Thank you,
Mr.
Susan.
Chairman?
What? Yes.
I would like to offer a public thank you to Transit President Roberts for putting into effect this coming July something that when he first got here, I gave him was one of my highest priorities. That is the restoration of overnight service to the Upper Lenox Avenue line. Those folks have suffered without train service since the Lenox Invert Project, which was approximately 15 years ago. They have had to go out in the street and take buses, whereas everybody else in the system has been able to get trains. So a public thank you to President Roberts for restoring this important missing link.
Long Island Railroad and Bus. David, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. There were no action items this month. The procurements, there was a total of 11 procurement action this month's packaging, totaling $11,624,000. Non-competitive, which in the green pages, there are 7 procurements in the non-competitive section this month in the amount of $10,354,000. The committee has approved these, and I'd like to move them.
Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
On the competitive yellow pages, there are 4, which brings us back to the 11 procurements. Those procurements are on this month's agenda, and they total $1,270,000. The committee has approved them, and I'd like to move them.
Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
There are no ratifications, Mr. Chairman. Long Island Bus. There were no action items. The non-competitive procurements are in the green pages, and there is one non-competitive procurement in the amount of $20,000. The committee approved it, and I'd like to move it.
Second, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
In the competitive procurements, the yellow pages, there is one competitive procurement in the amount of $75,000. The committee approved this item, and I'd like to move it.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So moved.
There are no ratifications, Mr. Chairman, and that completes the report for Long Island Railroad and Long Island Bus.
Thank you, David. We have Metro North. Jim again, please. Mr. Chairman, Metro North east of Hudson trains operated at 98.2% on time during the month of May. There are no action items this month. We had 12 procurements totaling $46,464,746. We have non-competitive, that's in the green, 3, totaling $2,099,650, including a procurement for outdoor matrix display boards. The committee has approved them, and I move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
In the yellow, there were 8 competitive procurements this month, totaling $43,140,096. The committee has approved them, and I move them.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So moved.
Then we have one item for ratification in the pink, totaling $1,225,000. The committee has approved it, and I move it.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Anybody opposed? So moved.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to note that of a lot of these procurements that we're issuing, a lot of them are multi-agency procurements, which really goes to the heart of our shared service that we've been talking about, and I think it's beginning to work.
And you can add, save us some money, too.
Thank you.
And better service. And better service. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Bridges and Tunnels. David.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman. Bridges and Tunnels Committee met this month. There are no action items, and there are no non-competitive procurements. On the competitive procurement side, which is on the yellow sheets, there are 5 competitive procurements totaling $20,559,000. The committee approved these actions, and I'd like to move them.
Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
There are no ratifications.
That's it. Thank you, David. Okay, Capital Construction, Planning, and Real Estate Committee. Nancy, please.
Yes, there were no action, non-competitive, or competitive items this month. However, there are 2 ratifications totaling $8,250,000. The committee approved these, and I move them.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So moved.
Regarding the real estate portion of the meeting, the committee reviewed and recommended a total of 6 real estate items for board approval, and the committee approved these, and I move them.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. At this time, I'd like to call for a motion to go in executive session for the board to conduct an executive session to discuss matters falling within the enumerated purposes of Section 105 of the Open Meetings Law, specifically a security and public safety matter, discussions regarding proposed or threatened litigation, and finally a matter related to collective bargaining. Labor representatives will do the labor bargaining matter first, so would you duck out and then you can come back in and do the other 2, please? So if you'd clear the room, please, and those labor guys go out, and we'll call you as soon as we're finished with the labor stuff. Thank you, everybody. We have one more action item, the resolution regarding the amendment to the board practices in connection with the non-revenue passes for former and present board members. Before the board is an action item is a resolution amending the MTA Transportation Pass Policy to, 1, rescind outstanding non-revenue passes, including Easy Pass tags that may have been issued to former board members and their family members and to family members of current board members, and 2, continue to provide the current board members with such non-revenue passes for use solely as an actual and necessary expense to the performance of their official MTA duties. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Abstain.
Abstain. Anybody abstaining? One abstaining? One abstention. Anybody else abstaining? Move to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Hey.
Okay, we're on a little bit of a tight schedule, so we're going to try and keep it relatively tight. So with that, Jeremy, would you like to open it up? Is that directed toward the chairman or to myself, Matt? Okay, fine. I think it's been a very challenging issue for us. I think on the one hand, I understand how the public sees the issue of easy passes, and I understand some of the consternation, disagreement with previous policies. On the other hand, our board feels very strongly that they did not do anything that was illegal, that this was endorsed by previous governors, previous attorney generals, and so it's been a very, very contentious issue. Are there some things I think in hindsight we could have done a little differently? Probably. Hindsight is always 20/20. But I think you can't get away from the fact that you've got two sets of positions here. One, the public that sees this as a privilege that many feel, I don't think all, but some feel was not appropriate. On the other hand, our board members who are not compensated, put in enormous hours, past practice endorsed by other governors and AGs. So.
And I think given when it was taken, when it was brought to our attention, the board moved as expeditiously as possible. We got the issue done and behind us as quickly as it possibly could be done. So I think everybody should be very pleased with the way the board handled the issue once it was brought to our attention.
What do you think the message is to the public?
I think either fortunately or unfortunately, the message is whatever you gentlemen and ladies write in the press. I think the message that we'd like to give is that when an issue was brought to our attention, we moved as quickly as we could to resolve the issue and come to a satisfactory conclusion.
I think the other thing to add to the chairman's points is that what the chairman, what the board, what I as a CEO feel most strongly about are these huge issues facing the future of the MTA, namely its funding. And I think there's a strong feeling that that is what is most important, and that what we collectively as a board and staff want to address is that, and it has to be put into context.
Well, can you give what's the rationale for changing the policy that you guys did?
The rationale is that you have made an issue of whether people get a free ride or not, and that took the focus off the really epic issues facing the MTA, which are how we're going to fund the mega projects and how we're going to continue to fund the service to 8.5 million New Yorkers who use our services. Those are really the issues before the board of the MTA, not whether or not we get free passes.
The Long Island Railroad Commuters Council issued a statement saying that in light of Mr. Mack's comments last week that they kind of question his ability to lead the Long Island Committee and his faith in riders to lead that committee. Do you have any question in your mind about his ability to lead the LI Committee?
I actually haven't seen that, so you're the first time I've heard about it, and the answer is I think he does a very good job leading the committee, and at the moment I have no plans to change it.
Chairman, are you still in the opinion that you expressed last week that the issues of raises to top executives and free travel for life and for spouses are nonsense, little issues? As you expressed in that
I don't think that the memo said little issues. I think that the memo said specifically that they were far less important than the issues facing the MTA, which are how we're going to fund the mega projects and keep the fares as low as humanly possible, and how we're going to continue to keep the place operating as well as it has been and make it operate better. I think it takes the focus off of those major issues. Not that they're unimportant and not that they're little, but it takes the focus off of the real important issues facing the MTA, which is how we're going to do a better job for the 8.5 million people who use our services every day.
Lee, I have two questions. First one has to do with the fact that there are 1,000 retirees to the MTA workers who also have easy passes. Very Feinstein says it's not fair to make former board members give them back when they have them. And secondly, yesterday, both Richard Ravitch and the governor told me that they want to revisit congestion pricing as a way to help fund both their operating and capital needs. So I wanted to address both questions.
First, on the congestion pricing. Congestion pricing is one of the alternatives that the Ravitch Commission will look at. I previously was a very strong proponent of congestion pricing, still am, and I think it's appropriate that as one of several alternatives that the Commission looks at, that should be done. So I think it should be done in that context. In regard to the retired bridge and tunnel officers who receive that benefit, we'll be looking at that as well.
What would you like me to say other than I'm for it? I definitely think it's a very good way of funding part of our deficit. I hope we get a new round of it, a new shot at it as soon as possible.
And let me just clarify in terms of the bridge and tunnel thing. When I say look at, I haven't looked at that in detail. I presume that as part of a collective bargaining agreement, and so I don't mean to immediately suggest we're going to reopen the contract. I just have not looked at that specific issue in detail. Please. Right, and I'm not sure either in terms of that regard, but we'll take a look at it. And that's passing no judgment. We will look at it. Yeah, no, I don't think it, certainly my comments were not meant in that spirit. I think that the board members and I think the organization feels that what was done was not illegal and that there are many who feel that was an appropriate use, but specifically in terms of the law, that there is no statement that we are making that suggests that what occurred was illegal, and we may well have prevailed in a court of law. There are different opinions about that. So there's no admission, of guilt or illegality in the past. As both the chairman and I said, we have real critical issues in front of the MTA. There are different opinions on this particular perquisite, and so it's just more important to get past this issue and deal with what's most important, with what's at hand, which is the future of the MTA and the future of this region. And it's in that context that we do this. There are different opinions on the board in terms of should this be sustained, should we go to court, what have you. But at the end of the day, strong collective opinion that the reason that our board members took these positions was to do good. Many of these board members did not know about these perks. They are secondary, and we just don't want to get that issue in the way of what needs to be done. And again, I'm not passing judgment about big issue, small issue, the reportage by the Daily News and others, but just you got to keep things in perspective. The MTA is too important, the future of the region is too important, and we need to move on.
So, Mr. Chair, just to follow up, what do you say to members like Warren Dolman who say they served a decade ago, they had this promise of lifetime work, and now you're snatching it well after they
You know, what I say to him is I'm very sorry, but the realities are today we can't have the focus off of the major issues of how we're going to fund the MTA into the future. The board is appointed by elected officials. I think that's a question that you have to ask them.
Question I have is, our board members will use easy passes, but how do you police that? When there are strong cases, it's like, how do you police that? How do you know it's going to happen?
I think there's a reasonable assumption that these are responsible, law-abiding citizens, and there's no reason to assume that they won't. I think our system presumes you're innocent until you're guilty, and there's no reason to believe that these people are not going to abuse the privilege. They gave it up voluntarily, and I presume they'll have the responsibility to use it appropriately.
Have you had passes returned since the report's been?
I believe so. Dale, Jeremy?
Yeah, I don't know how many, but yes, the answer is yes.
And again, just to clarify, I'm sorry, okay.
You then physically collect these, and also, is this symbolically important then, as far as the image of the organization?
We are going to send a letter out within 24 hours to everybody saying that they need to stop using the passes immediately, and would they send them back at their earliest convenience. And symbolically, I don't understand exactly the question.
I mean, do you think that drawing this perk is symbolically important to the organization's image to the public?
I'm not in a position to make that judgment.
This all sounds very grudging. You're talking about it. It sounds like you're testing it as a distraction, and you're only voting to remove these perks to get rid of a distraction. Am I hearing that correctly? And also, it sounds like there isn't really an acknowledgement here that you understand that the public perception of the leadership of the MTA seems out of step.
I think there's an understanding that we are out of step with the public's perception of what our responsibilities are. I don't think there's any grudging anything here. We're doing this voluntarily, as quickly as we could, having had the issue brought in front of us. We didn't stall. We moved as quickly as we could. This is the first board meeting after the issue came to us that we had. So we moved quickly. I don't think there's anything grudging about it. I think there's a recognition that we needed to have our position as leading the MTA not fall to any public misperception that we were taking advantage of the system. There's nobody here who took the position because of the passes. Most of the people who took the positions didn't even know we were going to be given them. We were actually handed them when we walked through the door, not knowing we were going to get them. So giving them up was not giving up something that we thought we were getting when we were getting the job. I think that's very important to understand. There's nobody who took the position because they were getting the passes. Everybody did not, let me say it again, most people did not know. I can't say for sure everyone, but I can say most everyone, including myself, didn't know that this was going to be made available when we either accepted the position or were confirmed. So giving it up is not giving up anything of any importance in the sense of it's not why we were doing the job, it's not why we accepted the job, and it was important to get by it as quickly as we could because we didn't want to give that perception. So I think what you're saying is not accurate, and I think it casts another cloud on a bunch of human beings who are trying to do the best job they possibly can for the riding public of the New York metropolitan region. And I really hope that you understand that. There's nothing grudging about this.
Yeah. Also, Jeremy, I just... I think when I opened it, I don't think there was anything what I said with the two different opinions that was begrudging. I think I think in my opening remarks, which were heartfelt, that there is a different opinion. I think where there is some sensitivity is a concern that folks did not follow the law. And I think that's where you found some degree of intensity.
Chairman, at a time when your agency is talking about maybe a fair hike, asking for more money from the state, cutting 6%, cutting all the fat possible, even though we're talking about a few thousand, tens of thousands of dollars here, I'm surprised that there isn't, you aren't
first of all, there's not an expense here. There's no expense. We run the trains, we operate everything, so if it's anything, it's a lost revenue. So I don't understand what you're saying. Let me say it again, as soon as the issue was brought to the board's attention, we moved as quickly as possible. I don't think any of you can go back and think that we didn't move as expeditiously as we could. We needed a board resolution to change it. Had a scheduled board meeting, and we did it as quickly as reasonably possible. I think that's the clear message. We heard the public, and we moved on it expeditiously and quickly without any grudge. Let me say it again. Nobody knew we were going to get this when we took the job, so it wasn't giving up anything that we thought we were getting when we accepted the position. A month ago, we heard about it an hour before this happened. We hadn't had a chance to think about it. We hadn't had a chance to think through it. Everybody was taken by surprise. It was a new issue to us. So I think we did move as quickly as possible. I don't agree.
Another issue that was raised in the context of all this was the market confidence issue by the MTA Board. Was that also addressed?
Same policy. Same policy.